Everyone, it's Steve Torso from Wholesale Investor. Obviously, I'm the Managing Director and co-founder of Wholesale Investor. Firstly, just want to say thank you everyone for coming onto the webinar. It's our actual first time doing it on Zoom. So if we have any tech issues during the actual presentation, apologies. And whilst I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be adding people to the call as well. So firstly, just want to start off, I'm going to play a bit of a video to get a bit of high level as far as CRIISP. Some of you may have actually already seen this online, but it'll give you a bit more of a context to the actual platform itself and what we're looking to do. Okay, so just so you know, basically, whilst I'm doing this, I'm obviously admitting a whole bunch of people that are coming online now as well to the actual to the webinar. So firstly, I suppose the real question is I want to give a bit of a context as to Wholesale Investor, and also I want to give a bit of context as to why we're actually doing CRIISP. And you may have noticed my voice is a bit more nasally than normal because as what happens, we actually launched this webinar, the promotion of it on Saturday, and of course on that day I lost my voice and we've been sick all weekend, so perfect timing. So today I can genuinely say I'm powered by Sudafed. Basically the first point is obviously we've been promoting small and emerging growth companies for the last 10 years, and we've been doing this not only just around Australia, but we've also been doing this internationally. And one of the things that I've noticed in that time period is that the space has obviously grown a lot. And as we've gone through, I suppose the main countries we've done a lot of work in has been obviously Australia, Singapore, and also the UK. We've noticed that basically what happens is as the space is expanded, it's also become a lot more fragmented. So about 2 years ago, we started thinking there must be a way to actually provide a solution to the ecosystem, in which effectively what we can do is provide a platform which will be end-to-end and allow the entire transaction to be done online. Because the way I see it is that from a wholesale investor perspective, firstly, about 10 years ago, we started building an ecosystem. And in our perspective, CRIISP is about digitizing and bringing that ecosystem together. And that has really been the focus from everything that we've been looking at, everything we've been developing, and the way in which we think about this as a platform. So the first thing I want to highlight for us, this is just version 1. We have been working on this for the last 12 to 18 months. The ideation of it has been lasted 2.5 years. But as far as a platform goes, it really is version 1. So, as far as what we're looking to achieve from it, the first part is we wanted a one-stop shop for capital raising. We wanted a transaction-ready deal rooms. And what we mean by that is that we don't want to be considered as a data room. And I'll answer some of the main questions that we get asked from people as they're looking at our platform. Basically, what we wanted a structure in which investors and advisors can have a folder set up, which they're obviously quite familiar with. But more importantly is that it's really simple for founders to be able to upload their documentation, because, when I'm going through my history, basically, when I first went to raise money, you guys would probably be aware that, Investec are one of our shareholders. Well, when I first started speaking to Investec, I was very naive as the process of raising capital. And this coming from someone that had been helping companies raise money for 7 years beforehand. My thinking was it was basically just going to be an IM, and then away goes the capital raise from there. And then what I learned as I was dealing with Investec, because they're an institutional investor, and you'll find this, anyone who's looking to deal with more strategic investors or more professional investors, there's a lot more requirements about what an investor is actually looking for. So that's when we realized that, I thought in this process, it'd be great to have transaction-ready deal rooms that investors could understand what they need to put folders into that straight away. The other part, I realized that there was actually multiple applications being used in the capital raising process, and there wasn't really anything which sort of brought it all together, and that was basically doing it as a SaaS model. And so the next step for us having investor tracking and messaging was really important for me, because not only did I want you as a company, or you guys as an advisor, to be able to, basically do Q&A with a potential investor, but I also wanted you to be able to track their activity, because to me, that was actually the most important part. One of the actual biggest frustrations in the capital raising process is you actually often have no visibility over what's happening. I know some of us will use email trackers, and that's great to an extent, because you can see that your emails have been opened and whatever. But there's nothing like being able to see exactly which documents have been downloaded the most, which frequently asked questions have been clicked on the most, or understanding how long someone's actually spending. And this is pretty much the stage where we want to get to from an analytics point of view. And then the last part for me is the ability for someone to actually invest via the platform. Now, one of the first questions we get, and I'll get to the FAQs in a second, is that people often ask us about the similarities between equity crowdfunding. And we sort of highlight that, said, really, we're not interested in CRIISP is not an equity crowdfunding platform. It is really just a platform which is to facilitate deal making. It's to allow you guys to do what you do. The three principles that we're actually building CRIISP on is, number one, get ready. Number two, stay ready. And number three, always be raising. And hence why, if you look at this one page, I think it really sums up our whole thinking process, because one of the challenges is that when you go to raise capital, you get pressure to raise money in a certain period of time. But what if there was always an opportunity for a potential investor to come into your business? What if that opportunity was available, whether it be for strategic partners or for people that could be, maybe invest and potentially take you into another country? And that's when we started thinking about things very, very differently. So I hope that makes sense. Now, why CRIISP? And this is a big one for me. Like, what actually drove us to build? Firstly, it's a massively fragmented ecosystem. Whilst it has grown a lot, you would all agree that there's a lot of things that are changing and moving at the exact same time. But no one really collaborates with each other, and that's one of the hardest parts we've found. Also, the capital raising process itself is also quite fragmented. You've got basically each service provider, whether it be professional services, whether it be advisory, everyone's trying to do their bit. Everyone's trying to get their share of fees, which is fine. That's what they do. But the reality is there's nothing that, as I said, once again, that actually brings it together. The third point is that the reliance on investment networks of advisors, and I know there'll be a lot of people on this call that have actually experienced this, and also I know there's advisors on this call, and it's actually a frustration for them as well. Advisors are always looking to increase the access of their investor networks, and obviously companies, when they go into a capital raising process, if an advisor says that they should be able to raise, the 1.5, the 2, the 2.5, the 5 million, easily, or whatever, they just expect it to happen. But often they don't actually get any visibility over the process whatsoever, or be able to understand what is actually taking place and what's going on. So that's really one of the things we also thought about, managing the cap raising via spreadsheet and email, which is still very common. You'd be amazed how many professional advisory groups and even investment banking groups are still using spreadsheets and emails to run their capital raising process. And I said, and if you're just joining now, I said I've apologized in advance that I've got a nasally voice today, because in doing this webinar, the day we launched it, I literally come down with no voice, with a sore throat, no voice, and become sick. All right, so, and then going on to the last three, the ability for lead tracking, the issuing of new shares, all that sort of stuff. And then the last one that sort of frustrated me personally was more that basically I just don't feel that online platforms deserve 6 to 8% of capital raising fees, especially if they're raising money from people that have been introduced to the companies. Sorry, if they're investors that have been introduced via the companies that are raising, right? Because really it's just a facilitation. It's just software that's actually doing it. All right, so that was the sort of common frustrations. Now, CRIISP itself, really the way we see it is basically this is an ecosystem play for us. And so whilst you may be an individual company sort of assessing whether the potential of CRIISP for you, the way we're looking at it is we obviously want to work with you as a company, and also we want to work with the ecosystem around you. In fact, it's very important for us, and you'll see that over the next sort of 12 to 18 months, we'll be doing a lot of work, not only with what I'm highlighting there in Australia, but also overseas as well. In fact, in the next sort of, I suppose next 1 to 2 months, we're having some big announcement with some groups that we've been collaborating with across Australia, Singapore, and also in the UK. Right, so most of you don't know this, but obviously WI's got a pretty significant size ecosystem. And really the way we're seeing this is what we want to do is we want to transfer the WI ecosystem onto the CRIISP platform, because for us, really what it's about doing, as I said, it's about digitizing our ecosystem that we've been building. And what that means for you guys as companies or for you as advisors is that effectively, we want to help make things easy for you in whatever capital raising you're going to do going forward. And this is effectively where we want to get from an outcomes perspective. Obviously, right now, we're looking at the capital raising admin solution. The next stages we'll be bringing into things as far as will be algorithmic matchmaking. So that will be over the next sort of 6 to 12 months. And then obviously transactions around typically the secondary sales is of interest to us. And potentially also private placements for small cap listed companies is another area. And then also we've been collaborating with potential digital registries where they can, and they're obviously third-party providers. So we obviously do not want to be a registry service. All we want to do is just facilitate that and facilitate the integration with those actual registry services. And I'll just say that you just may want to check that you're not, you've not got your video on. I notice there's one actually on there. Okay, so, and really I said starting at $100 a month. So for startups, for companies that are ESIC approved, that's effectively the cost of using the platform. And then obviously going to companies where, they're sort of more growth-based companies, it starts at $200 a month. So really, for anyone that's been in capital raising, $2,400 a year is not a large amount when it comes to raising capital, especially the money that can be saved in the actual process, right? So that's effectively where we're looking to go to. Now, some other points I just want to really highlight is that, apologies, most of you know WI from our media and events perspective, right? The thing we want to really highlight is that with the CRIISP platform, is that really it is available for startups. So with WI, with our core events that we do, mostly we're working with sort of scale up and growth stage companies. And typically when we're working with those companies, they're going through the process of, they're raising typically over, anywhere between 500 to 10 million. But with CRIISP, we actually want to work with you right through the entire process. So right from the day in which you're launching as a startup, right through to the actual exit. So that's what, as far as all the different things that we're looking at building into the platform, it's all facilitated around that. And the sheer philosophy that we're bringing into it is we want to save you time, money, and make the process more efficient for you. Okay, so frequently asked questions. Let me go through all of these right now. And then just so you know, in probably about 5-10 minutes time, I'll be giving you a bit of a demo of the platform itself, just so you know. Okay, so most frequently asked questions. How is CRIISP different to equity crowdfunding? So really two ways. Firstly, we don't charge any success fees. So we're not trying to charge you 6 to 8% to utilize a platform. And the second big one for us is we're still targeting high net worth investors. Right, so CRIISP, we're not, as a platform, we're not trying to look to add retail mum and dad investors for it. It really is focused on high net worth investors, and obviously that's our core on the wholesale investor side. The next question we get asked the most is how is CRIISP different to Encerata and other data room providers? And just to make this clear straight off the bat, we're not trying to compete with Encerata at all. In fact, we're not really trying to compete with anyone. All we're trying to do is just enable the ecosystem. So when people see a folder structure, they think, oh, that's a data room. The only reason for that folder structure is basically to facilitate a transaction. Right, so yes, it does have some similar elements, but for example, we deal with companies where, actually one of the investors we deal with, for example, they let us know that they've got a data room which has 20,000 documents in it. Now, for us as a company, we've got no interest in hosting 20,000 documents. I said typically what it's about is just really setting up a basic folder structure that people can use. It's practical, it's pragmatic, and it's simple for investors. And they can see and you can see exactly what they're doing whilst they're in your deal room. Okay, so the next question is, I'm a corporate advisor, how can I use CRIISP? Well, quite simply, the best way to actually use CRIISP is that you can actually effectively use it to run your client's capital raising process. So that when you're actually going through the raise, what you're effectively doing is that you're managing the capital raising on their behalf. And then what you can do is you can invite the company as a collaborator, or likewise the other way around. If you're a company and you want to invite a corporate advisor onto the platform, then you can also, you can invite them as a collaborator. And the definition of a collaborator, what that means is effectively they can upload transactions for you, but more importantly, they can invite investors and they can see exactly what's actually taking place on the actual platform. Now, the next question we get asked is, do we take success fees? And I just answered that. No, we do not take success fees. I'm going to add another one to this. If I'm charming enough, can I convince you to take success fees? And their answer is still no. We do not take success fees in any way, shape, or form. So we just want to highlight that as much as possible. Next question we get asked is, I'm in the middle of a capital raising or about to start. What is the best way to use CRIISP? And to put it simply, the easiest way that you can use CRIISP is that it doesn't matter if you're actually in the middle of a cap raise, just use it. Because I'll go through in a second about the most effective ways to actually invite investors for it. But the most important thing for you is I just want you to have visibility over the capital raising process. And that is really the starting point that we want to communicate with the potential investors. Why would I use CRIISP if I'm not raising? And this is a really good question, because one of the things that we're highlighting is this process, and one of the questions that people ask us is, well, if I'm not raising capital, would people only use this for a few months a year? I said, no, the actual purpose of this is we want you to be using this platform for the next few years, basically from the time you're starting right now to the time you actually exit. And the reason being is because we want you to have visibility over the entire process, over the investors, their activity, their engagement with your platform, right all the way through. Right. So if you're in the middle of a raise, reach out to the team. So you'll give you an opportunity to actually reach out to us and set up, sort of following this call. I said, we'll help you with the startup and we'll help you with the setup phase. But I said, it's really about just doing what you're already doing, except just simplifying it and using our software to make life easier for yourself. As far as features that we'll be implementing, I'll mention that shortly. How can I control access to my documents? I'll show you that in a second. And then also, will we be integrating with share registry services? And I've mentioned that already. Absolutely, we will be doing that. Okay, so here's some screenshots. Right, so as I mentioned, I will go through a demo shortly, but I just want to give you some example screenshots, and it doesn't hurt for me that I've got my throat is killing me. Okay, so this is the onboarding part. So when you go in, you really just set up your details quite simply. You just enter what you're actually looking to do. You enter, like for example, if you have to get board approval for any shareholders, you can just enter that. The total amount you're raising, the capital raised so far, what's your price per share. The system will figure out the rest for you as far as the shares on offer. And also, if you're going to allow oversubscription, simple things to add, right? And also the minimum investment. All that, and once again, the philosophy behind all this is option and control. You have the ability to put in whatever you want, and you have the control over what people see and what they don't see. So it's not a forced mechanism in how things have to be done. You are in complete control the entire way through, right? So even going back down this, as you go through this process, you get the option of whether you want your deal viewed in the investor marketplace or not. It's completely up to you. Some people like to run their capital raising quite privately, which is completely fine. And that's the way it's set up to do it. Other people may want to attract more investors. So they may want to put in the investor marketplace. That is also completely fine as well. The reality is the investment in the software itself, it's very easy for us to save you time, save you money, and make it more efficient, because obviously one of the biggest costs for founders is the opportunity cost side. Okay, so this is what an empty deal room looks like. And as you can see, the company's got their details set up. It's got in an amount as far as funded, it's got shares available, how much been invested, etc. All that stuff is fairly simple. But as you can see, the folder structure is already in place. And what I can see most companies using is obviously the pitch deck to simplify their process. Down the left-hand side, you can see the different rooms. So you can actually set up, for me, for example, I've actually got 3 rooms set up. I've got the Wholesale Investor main one, which has got a pitch deck in it. I've got one which has got my financials, and then I've got another one which is a full DD room. Because I found for my process, some investors have just been interested in the pitch deck. Others have wanted to see some of the financials. Others haven't been interested at all in seeing the financials. Others wanted to do the full DD, which is completely fine. Sorry, I'm just sipping on a cup of tea whilst I'm doing this. Okay, so this is an example when a deal room's filled. Now, what's really important about this, and I'll show you on the demo section in a second, but you can actually view what an investor views. And the important thing about that is that basically any folders that you leave empty do not actually show to the investor. The only folders that will show are the ones that you've actually got documentation in. And obviously it highlights how many. On the right-hand side, you can see it's got recent activity. For me, that's been probably one of the most addictive things and addictive components about the platform altogether, is the fact that you can see exactly what's happening and when it's happening. I said, and I'll show you in our demo one in a second. As you can see, I've made it on the path on the Pathfinder alert. Okay. So as you see, there's lead management from here, and I'll show you what that looks like in more detail in a second. Obviously, viewing it on your it's basically just as easy to do deals on your mobile phone as it actually is on the platform itself. The FAQ management and messaging. This to me is probably one of the best features for any founder out there. Basically, we spend our lives as founders, and actually even as advisors as well, we spend our lives answering the exact same questions over and over and over again. The FAQ management side allows you to set up your most frequently asked questions, so that really you're not answering those same things over and over again. All you're doing is you set it up, you point investors to it, and then they can actually go through it in their own time. Effectively, what I'm just trying to do is save you hours of time, literally. And then as you can see down here on the right-hand side, the messaging is live and it's instant. And the way it's set up is if someone doesn't get your message, or if someone's not online, for example, if someone doesn't respond to your message within 10 minutes, they get shot an email to notify them that you've actually communicated with them, right? So that's how the messaging works. But it's live, it's instant, and you can actually chat directly. But once again, the whole purpose of this is just centralizing the conversation on the platform and also centralizing the FAQ. Now, the other thing that can happen is if someone asks you a really good question that you've been asked over and over again, you can actually click on, there's a button which has add to FAQ, and you can actually do that directly from the platform, which once again simplifies the entire process. Okay, so this is probably one of the most addictive parts for me is the activity tracking, because as I said, as an advisor or as a founder, it's really hard, or a company that's raising money, it's really hard to track what the real interest is from a potential investor is. So you can see in this example, basically they've come back to the deal room on multiple occasions. Now I've had it with my personal one, with the Wholesale Investor one, where people have come back to a deal room on 9 or 10 different occasions, right? And each time they've either downloaded a different document, or they've asked a different question, or whatever it may be. And what happens is that gets scored. And you can see that here with the total points. So every time somebody has an action on the platform, it actually gets scored. And then on the side, they'll actually get ranked. So you'll see this in a second, you actually have a leaderboard on the platform. So this is an example of the investor marketplace. It's very basic at the moment in the way in which it's set up as far as stage, sector, industry. That's really basically for us, one of the things we're going to be investing the most in sort of going forward, is in how this actually filters out different deals and how it makes it more relevant from the investor perspective. From the company side, the way we're promoting deals at the moment, and we mentioned this, is for June, what we're doing for companies which join CRIISP and become a client for CRIISP in June, we're actually promoting them on the Wholesale Investor, promoting the companies on Wholesale Investor, and then we're allowing you as a company to then go and invite them over to your CRIISP deal room. Okay, now this is, I think that for me, this is one of the most important features of it, which is actually the pricing, right? So as I said, everyone in this area is typically trying to go for two things: either the money that you're raising, or they're trying to go for success fees. From us, we're not trying to get either. All we're trying to do is just enable your capital raising. All we want you to do is we want you to save your time, save your money, and make it more efficient for you in the process.
As you can see, you can start off as free, right? With that, you can't actually do any transactions on it. You can only put in 5 documents into it. You can use the Q&A, you can use messaging, and there is obviously lead management and the analytics. For any company that's actually looking to properly set themselves up, or they're actually in the middle of a raise right now, or they're going to be in a raise, then it's literally, if you're ESIC approved, it's $99 a month. If you're a premium, if you're a SME or a growth or a scale-up company, then it's $199 per month, and obviously it's billed annually. So literally just under $2,400 a year, and you can have access to the full platform, plus the promotion, plus the distribution of all your significant news announcements, for the next 12 months as well. And I'll get to that in a second. Okay, so getting most out of CRIISP. So the first part, when you're setting yourself up, you've got to decide what you want to share and what you don't want to share, right? As I said, for me, I set myself up with 3 different rooms. One, which is basically just got a pitch deck and a term sheet, right, to keep it nice and high level and keep it simple. The second one has got financials in it, right, because I said some people wanted to get access to the financials, and then other people, and then also I've got the DD. The other thing as well is I haven't shared on mine the progress of the raise or anything like that, right, because that's up to me to decide. And that's like for you guys, I said it's up to you to decide what you share as far as the status and the stage of your raise. And also it's up to you to decide if you actually want to be in the investor marketplace or not. Because as I said, there's plenty of companies we've come across where they want to just raise their money discreetly amongst their own networks. But what they want to do is just have software facilitated so they're not wasting so much time on paperwork or wasting money on different professional services they don't really need to use. The second stage is basically inviting your existing investors and potential investors to the actual platform. As you're going through this process, feel free to reach it. We've got a basic template that you can send out to the companies, which Patrick can share with people who request, with basic clients who request it. And the purpose of that is really just to get people engaged with your actual deal room, right? And then once again, as soon as they start engaging with it, it actually starts tracking that activity. And once again, it's important for you to know that engagement level, because even if someone doesn't invest today, it doesn't mean that they won't invest 6, 12, 18 months from now. I would suggest to everyone to actually set up their FAQs. And the reason being, the faster you set up your FAQs, the more time you're going to save yourself answering the same question over and over. Driving engagements. So those engagements could be anything to do with investor events, trade shows, any activities. It could be different funding campaigns that you're doing, different networks that you're speaking to. Any of those activities, you can actually drive them to your CRIISP deal room, right? And then the last one is sharing announcements and updates via the WI platform. All this helps us generate more interest for you. Any other activities that could drive potential investors to your deal room, I obviously suggest to do that. Now, there's a whole bunch of, as part of this, and also I'll just highlight one other thing. As we're sort of launching and rolling out CRIISP, we're going to be adding a lot of education to it as well. So we've already started a capital raising guide, and at some stage we're going to be introducing a marketplace for different apps and things and different integrations which make your life easier. But the other part is for clients who come on board for CRIISP as well. There'll actually be for every month you'll get access to a specific webinar which will assist you in covering 3 areas. 1, tips on raising capital. 2, tips on accelerating growth. And then 3, tips on actual scaling, right? Because all those are quite relevant to all founders. Okay, so special offer for the month of June. Now, just after, actually, I'll take you through the platform and I'll go through this in a second. Okay, let me just switch screens. Okay. Okay, let me just go. Okay, so here's a room that we've actually set up as a bit of an example one.
Yeah, Chris. Go back. Demo CRIISP Series B.
Okay, so Pat has instructed me to do the demo CRIISP Series B room. Okay, so as you can see on here, Okay, let's go through it all. Basically, setting up a summary is actually really simple. You know, as far as the text, you basically insert your text, keep it at size 14. So it's quite simple. You can save summary, simple editor, etc. I said everything we've done is just from pure simplicity. People have asked the question of, are we thinking about inserting video and all that sort of stuff? Yes, we are thinking about inserting potentially embedded video. What we don't want it to look like, we don't want it to become sort of too cluttered with information. I said we want to keep the core of this as being more focused around an administration and transactional platform. You can see with the actual deal room settings, I think it's quite important to actually note. Okay, so when I click on that share room, right, all you have to do is you can enter in somebody's name. So for example, I could just enter in my own email, right? And then once I finish, I just do add, and you can see down here all the different emails we've actually been putting in as a bit of a test, right? Or the other one you may want to do, so if you're going to send out an email, so let's say you got a list of 100, let's say you've collected 100 potential investors and you just want to share your deal room with them. The other way to do it is to actually use the share via email. So it automatically creates a link. You can share that. Now, the important part for this is that when people receive this link and they click on it, they'll still have to request access to your room. Now, the reason being is we're very, very conscious of, how can I say it, the sensitivity of your data that may be in your room, and we want to make sure it remains that way. So if you invite, so for example, if you invite an email directly, someone will have direct access to your, if you invite them through that email is registered in the system and they'll be able to view your deal room because you've directly invited them. However, if you use a shareable link, they'll still have to request access. Now, this is not our main site, by the way, so you're seeing a bit of a different email address. This is just our preview platform and one which we use for demonstrations, right? So this email address will be of no use to you. But it gives you the example. All I have to do is just copy, right? And then I can include that in an email, and I can send that out in my email list and then invite people to view it. And if you've got the concern, oh, what if someone posts it somewhere or blah, 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 you can still reject and you can still screen every single person that actually comes into the actual platform. And that's quite important. Right now, another thing as well is if you've already invited someone and they say, oh, look, I haven't received your invite, which they would have, but it may just be sitting in their inbox, then all you can actually do is you can click on this. Right now, this covers a couple of things. You can actually resend the invitation. If there's someone that's actually helping you with setting up your deal room, you can actually grant them collaborator access. Or if you don't want to invite them anymore, let's say you've discovered they're not interested as an investor, you can actually just cancel the invitation. Right? So really, really lay down easy, simple for someone to actually manage. The grant the collaborator process, I think, is quite good for a company that's got a corporate advisor, or if you want to have your lawyer helping you on the capital raise. Very, very helpful for them to use. Okay, so that's that part. On the settings part, switch to investor view. As you can see on the investor view, right, all the other stuff just disappears. Right. The other thing that will come up on the investor view is also the invest with button. So once again, it's sort of pretty self-directive in what somebody needs to do. So switching back to editor view. Okay, deal room settings. All this is fairly straightforward. I think this is the most interesting part. So the privacy settings are this. If you want to hide how much you've raised already, you can do that. If you want to hide the shares available, you can do that. If you want to hide the amount invested so far, you can do that. If you want to make sure it doesn't appear in the deal room, you can also do that. Right? Putting in the actual themes, okay, are ones that we're sort of fairly well familiar with. The sectors are actually go by the GICS code, right? Because we wanted it compliant with the sort of, I suppose, the main, terminology and structuring of data that gets used by different stock exchanges, and that's sort of for later down the track. And then obviously the stage round in which you're at is also very easy to change. And if you do change anything, just save and then it's done. Right, you simply insert your bank details. If you notice up here, transfer restrictions. Now, the reason this is inserted is that some of you may actually have shareholders agreements. So if you do have shareholders agreements, then what that means is you just simply need to write that they will need to sign a shareholders agreement as part of their investment into your company.
right? And I think that's quite important. Okay, so going back to the deal room. Now, as you can see, the recent activity, it says that I've basically updated the deal room on that side. Now, Q&A. Okay, so you can see Patrick's asked a question here. What is your growth strategy, right? Now, what I can actually do with that is when he actually asks questions like that, you can actually, and you can notice that what he's done is he's looked on the document and then he's asked a question specifically off that document, right? Now, the important thing for that is that it means investors, you know exactly what an investor is referring to when they actually ask that question. I've been asked of, do we have it on the specific page of a PowerPoint presentation? At this stage, no. It's really just the document itself, right? Now, the other thing that can happen as well is that when they ask that question, it can come up with the ability to add to FAQ, right? And as you can see, we've been messing around with it. And really, I suppose the adding to the FAQ is important because it just makes it really easy from your side to be able to then add it into this side. How to explain the database? So I put in a question here. Okay, so in setting up this FAQ, you basically just set up a question. You could put a document related to useful pitch deck. So how do you explain your expected sales growth? Because this might be a question these investors are asking you. And then simply, you can put your answer in here and then submit. And then you'll notice it's already here. So one of the things we're actually working on is on the data tracking aspect, and I'll show you on another room because it's sort of not highlighted in this room so well. On the data aspect, basically what we want to do is the top questions which get clicked on by investors, we actually want that to filter to the top. And also we're going to score every single time that it gets clicked on as well. Now, if you look at Patrick, he's been active. You can see that he's been active on the platform. Now you can see that with his total points and his engagement, you can see all the different ways that he's actually engaged. Now, where this timeline is so cool is actually being able to see all the different times that he's actually come onto the platform. And it's been surprising for me. As I said, I've had people come back and forth my deal room between 8 to 10 times. Even over the space of like 2 or 3 weeks, which is really surprising for me. Also from here, you've got complete control in the sense that you can obviously send messages, you can revoke access, etc. But really there's the timeline, and so we'll add stuff to this as far as adding which FAQ they click on, and then also you'll start to see more data around that. Okay, so going to leads. Now, as you can see, we've got a bunch of leads in the demo room. Now, what I can do from here, so let's say Patrick's already on the call. So let's say I want to manage Patrick. So there's a couple of things I can do from here. I can view his activity, I can revoke his access, but let's say he's told me that he's interested in investing into the company. I can literally just click that and he'll now be sent an investor application form straight to his email. Right now, he can complete that actually on his phone in getting the deal done. Okay, so transactions. Now this is a good one to show. So basically when an actual transaction is done, as you can see, it's still on, and as you can see, I've got multiple deals, multiple rooms open. When a transaction is done, right, so you can either hide the card, but this is what you really want to see. You actually want to view the entire transaction. So what does the transaction look like? So for you as a company, and even for the investors, when they actually see their own, they can see the date that everything was submitted, the date that you approved the application form. So the important thing for that is you still have to improve their share application form as it comes through, right? The investor certificate, the payment, so you have to acknowledge that you've actually received the payment, and then also the share certificate. So if you want to see what an application looks like, this is an example of one that's been filled out as an example. Right, now as you can see, there's a complete digital signature online, etc. And all the bank details and so forth are provided for the investor, and also the ability to upload their sophisticated investor certificate is also provided through that part as well. All right, so once again, everything we're trying to do is just to really simplify the process for investing into a company. View the investor certificate. Okay, so I'll just click on this. Okay, so you can actually download it straight from here as well. Okay, and then on here you can actually sign it. Now you can actually use a QR code to actually sign that on your phone to make it quite simple. So I can just literally click on that, the signature button will appear, and then away I go to actually sign it. All right, so everything we've thought of is about really making the process as simple as possible for you as the company in being able to actually transact. It's funny, there's still people actually coming onto the conference call. Okay, so yeah, so that's really that's the highlight. That's sort of I suppose the high level. You can see that you get a notification room. Now this is also good to keep up to date with what's actually happening. As you can see, one of our staff is a mixed martial arts fan on their test room. But as you can also see, you got how many rooms you've been open, access requests, investment requirements, etc. You also do get notified via email as well when these come through. But once again, if I'm going to go back to answering Patrick's question, I just click on that and then away I go straight back to it. And once again, it's just as easy on the phone as it actually is on the platform. Now, is anyone asking any questions that I should answer?
Yes. So there's an issue. There's a question regarding separate due diligence.
Yep.
Or how would they go about doing that? So in terms of tiered access or something similar.
Okay. So someone's asked a question about separate due diligence. So really, once again, we're just trying to go for the 90% of use cases, right? So basically, what I did for my structure is that I've got a wholesale investor room, which is basically just got a pitch deck in it and also a term sheet, right? Because for a lot of high net worth, that's all that's going to be required. For more professional investors, family offices, I suppose more strategic investors, they will require more information. So the way I've set mine up is I've got 3 different rooms, right? But only one is actually really transactional, which is the main one that I've set up. The other 2 has got my financials in it because I found that some investors don't want to do a full DD, but they do want to see the high level financials. The other room I've got set up is the full DD room, which has all the information that they could require for it as well. So I said I've got typically 3 tiers of structure that I set up my 3 rooms. It took maybe, because when I went through in my mistake, and I said, if you think about the whole way CRIISP has been built, it's basically from all my mistakes when it comes to raising capital. So the way I'm fortunate now that I've got a lot of information already set up on the platform and ready to go. And the reason being is because when I went through the DD process with Investec, our advisor helped me get that folder structure right. So literally we've used that same folder structure to assist in this process. And when people asking questions about Enserata, it's a similar folder structure to what they use because we're actually going to be collaborating. And it's one of the things we're working on is a tech collaboration where you can actually scorecard yourself to discover basically how investor ready you are. So that's one of the things we're actually working on. So I hope that sort of helps answer that question.
Yeah. In regards to viewing permissions, so for instance, if you have sensitive documents in the due diligence and preventing people from downloading it, but they can still view it.
Yep.
And does that question regards to it being prevented from being downloaded, so you can just view it on the browser?
Okay, so basically, when people are actually downloading docs, so they actually can actually download. So if you've got DD, if you got all your DD folders set up, I said some have some, and I said this is not a fully set up data room that you would expect, right? So this is set up to be more transactional focused. So if people, well, the way it's set up is when you download a document, it generates a link and then it opens in a frame. So I've found for myself that most people tend to have not downloaded my docs. What they've done is they've viewed it in the frame, and if they wanted to come back to it, they've just clicked on download again, and they've just viewed it in the frame within the platform. So that's why, for me, I said I've been seeing people coming back to the platform 8 to 10 times. So when they click on it says download, but really what it does, it generates a link to view them inside the sort of basically inside a frame, which when they close it down, it's not saved onto their computer.
Yeah. And finally, another question was to do with how does this work for the grey resale market? So that might be legal more towards a secondary trade?
Secondary, yeah. So look, basically one of the modules we're working on right now is, so we got asked the question about how does this work for the secondary sales process. The reality is we're actually working on the secondary sales process at the moment. We just wanted to launch specifically with the capital raising process in mind as a starting point. And the reason being is that that's really what we see being most useful at the starting point. The secondary sales module will come next, and when that becomes available, we'll make sure absolutely everybody knows about it, because we know it's quite highly desired.
And finally, can you invite your team members, e.g. marketing, investor relations, or an advisor onto the platform to act as a contributor as well?
Okay, so here's the thing. It depends on what you want to share. So it depends on information that you want to share. So for me, if you're setting up a full DD suite that has all your financials and everything like that in your company, then you're probably going to invite your advisor to use the platform. I know I've invited one of our team members that was actually helping me with the capital raise. And all you do is, basically the way you do that is you do share room, you do collaborator, and then you can actually invite the person as a collaborator. And then when you add them, instead of view as an investor, you can edit and have them as a collaborator, which means that those people can actually add different documents to your room. And the reason why you'd want to do that is honestly just to saving your time when you're actually setting up your deal room.
And what is the time frame for the secondary sales platform?
So secondary sales, we've set the time frame to be around September, October. So all going well. I think we'll like maybe 1 to 2 months behind on the actual launch of CRIISP. So let's say September, October is the ideal time frame that we'll be looking to launch it. And as I said, we know that it's a strong interest to a lot of people. There'll be other features coming as well with that. There'll be secondary sales. There'll also be the ability for book builds, right? And also there'll be the ability for syndications as well. And the reason for the syndications, we know a lot of high net worth investors like to work together. I know most people know syndications more from angel groups, but typically in the time with WI, we see a lot of high net worths that like to collaborate and work with each other on deals. So we will be providing that facility as part of the syndication side.
Are there any regulatory barriers in using this in US, China, European investor markets?
Okay, so the regulatory question, given that we actually do have our lawyer on the actual conference call, basically for us, our focus right now is Australia. Our second focus, our other two focus will be Singapore and the UK. I know we do have a group on the moment that's chatting to us about the US, so we're going to be finding out information for that. Put really simply, we've done this, the way we've structured CRIISP from our side as a company is we don't want to be handling any money. We're not handling any of the money. We're not giving advice or any recommendations. It's really set up as an administrative, and because we're not taking success fees as well, we're really set it up as an administrative platform. So we'll be finding out exactly what the regulatory aspects are for that in different countries in the near future. But as we sort of go into other areas, we will let you know. We do have a lot of different, I said, for me as a founder of WI for 10 years, I've never seen anything like the interest we're getting for this platform across multiple countries. So this, I said, I should be having answers for the ecosystem coming up pretty soon.
And does your algorithm link companies to your high net worth network? And has this been successful or raising through, has raising been brought through the company instead?
Okay, so two things. In regards to the algorithm, that's actually the next phase of development. So basically around October, we're looking to overlay two parts, machine learning and data graphing. And the reason being is we've been collecting data for the last 6 years about what investors are actually interested in, what deals they click on and all that sort of stuff. Basically, the combination of what we've collected via WI and also CRIISP, I think is really quite important. And also, basically, we want to get to the stage where for you as a company, you're effectively, and you saw what we're looking to charge, we're not looking to charge that much, but basically, for you as a company, if basically around 5K a year, you can have your entire capital raising solution, as well as being introduced to investors month in, month out, via our platform that are relevant, that are interested in your area, they're interested in your demographic, your geography that you're looking to go to. then we know that we're changing the game when it comes to raising money. And that's what we're really focused on, because we know that your time is not best spent sending out emails to people trying to find out if they're interested in your business. Your time is best spent on speaking to people that are interested or that are relevant to you. And also your time is best spent on actually building your business, growing your team, spending it with your team, etc. Because we're very well aware of how time consuming the capital raising process is and how much it takes you out of your business. So we will be working on that. And what was the second question?
Has this been successful?
Yeah, so basically the platform's already, like I used it first on myself, and literally after the first call, literally on the first day, I received our first share applications, which was such a beautiful thing to see, watching your own platform work for you. And also I got a beautiful message by Peter, who's on the call today, on our launch day. Just before we actually did our launch, he sent me a message on LinkedIn to say that, you know, CRIISP completely worked for him. They actually they received an investment application on the first day. So that was a really nice thing for us to see. And I think that sort of leads in nicely to what I want to talk to next, is that we do actually have a special offer for the month of June. And look, to be as blunt as possible, the reason why we've got a special offer for June is that we want to promote CRIISP as much as possible. And we know the best way to do that is via deals, right? So basically what we've put together is that for 2,400 plus GST, right, this is normally what we would charge a lot more for on the WI side, but effectively you get 12 months access to the platform, which means you can actually have a full due diligence folder set up. You can actually set up multiple rooms as I instructed. You can set up one with just your pitch deck, one with your financials, and also one with a full DD. You can actually set up your full FAQs. You can have access to the data and analytics. You can have full digital tracking of the transaction, digital signatures for the share application, etc. The business will be posted in the actual CRIISP marketplace. The last two parts I think are quite important as well, is that we will be publishing your deal on WI, so the profile of your company as a bonus. So both these are bonus stuff, right? So we'll be actually publishing the deal on WI, and also we'll be publishing any significant news that you have over the next 12 months, right? So it's pretty significant offer. And then the other one is we'll have specific emails which will go out in email promotions. So for the companies that are actually coming on board for the month of June, we will be promoting you. We will be promoting your business on the WI platform, registering interest, and then what you'll then do is you'll then invite them over to your CRIISP deal room for them to view your platform as well. So, for us, we want to do everything possible to generate as much momentum for the companies that are going to be using it. And also we want to generate as much, we basically want to take as much of our investor ecosystem onto the platform as possible. Obviously it's nice that we've got two sides of the ecosystem already, but for us, as far as accelerating the growth, we want you to not only just promote it on WI, but as I mentioned before, you should be inviting your own investor networks to the platform as well to view the different opportunities. So we're going to send out a follow-up email sort of following this with that special offer. Now, as timing would have it, not only did I lose my voice, get sick, and struggle with talking, but also the nice touch is our subscription part on the actual platform is having issues today. So basically, if you want to subscribe for the special offer, I'll be sending you an email around with Patrick's address. Patrick will facilitate that, the signing up for you and the signing up process, and also he'll help you with the onboarding as well, so that you're obviously ready to basically begin sort of inviting investors to your deal room. And if you have any other questions, feel free to send them through to either myself or Patrick. We're happy to answer. We actually want to do a lot of these webinars, not just obviously talking about CRIISP, but also just doing whatever we can to try and help you in your capital raising journey, and try bring other potential speakers as well that are also can potentially be helpful for you in your journey for raising money. So, is there any more questions to finish on?
Does CRIISP have an aid to sell, or do I need to bring my own?
Okay, so basically it's a good question. So WI at the moment, or anything, works under the class order, right? So it's a class order 02273. It has been set up in the way in which we will be allowing people, but anyway, the terms and conditions set it up so it's structured for sophisticated investors,
and also takes advantage of the Section 708 part of the Corporations Act. So inviting people known to the company, but obviously focused around sophisticated investors as well. So you do not, so at this stage, you do not need to bring your own AFSL to the platform, because as I said, we are not charging transaction fees. We are not adding it. But if you yourself are a corporate advisor and you are arranging securities, then you'll need an AFSL for your own services. But from our perspective, because we're not advising, because we're not handling money, because we're literally just administering the process, it's slightly different. Cool. So on that note, thank you everyone for joining. We've obviously recorded this. I obviously want to do this again where my voice is a lot less nasally, but really appreciate everyone coming on. I hope you got value from it. Feel free to keep the questions coming, and have a great day.